Matt, will you talk for a second just to make sure I can hear you? Yeah. All right, it is 5 o'clock, so we will commence the Board of Education for the Osceola School District Committee meeting with a roll call. Kaisa?
Yes.
Jan?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
And myself. We are all here. Item 2 is aligning and developing our facilities to best meet educational safety and security goals. Item A is the building project referendum update.
Well, hi, good evening. Thanks for being here. Just wanted to talk through with Matt present about, we've had some time now to process and think about what our next step should be. So we talked about the H elementary school, and we know that we need to continue to move forward. I know we talked about if it didn't pass, what we're gonna do next, and we're at that point, so. Matt, do you have anything you wanna add right from the go?
I mean, Becky, I generally think that the fact that the community didn't agree with the, sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback from my end.
I'm not hearing any feedback here.
Alright, we'll move. I guess big picture, when we don't get support, it doesn't mean obviously that the needs go away, right? I mean, we have needs and the elementary school challenges remain. So I think the discussion has to be focused around, ideally, we heard the community that didn't agree with this solution. We don't know why they didn't agree. We don't know if it was the solution specifically. We don't know if it was the cost or the tax impact. We don't have any information or data to support the continued conversation around how do we address those needs. So it's appropriate to be disappointed. It's normal to not know what the next right step should be. I will admit, after doing over 100 of these, I didn't pass 100% of them. So this happens, and it's easy to be upset and frustrated and say the community doesn't understand, they need to support something. That's good and it's normal, but we also can't let that cloud the reality of we didn't get support, we still have needs, what's the next step? And most often that next step is acknowledging that we didn't get support, basically meaning we heard you, we listened. We don't go back and just charge for the same exact solution because it's the right solution. And usually the best way to figure out why the community didn't align with our thoughts as a board and as a leadership team around what the right answer might be is to do a survey versus just saying, every board member, tell me what you think. Because you're all hearing things, and that's good, and that information is valuable. But as we've talked for 2 years now, it's not statistically valid, right? You're not all talking to 100 people, 75 of which don't work for the school district or don't have kids in school. So my opinion is ideally that there would be what I would call a post-mortem community survey, which really starts to dig into and is mailed to everybody's home, that we dig into deeper. Why didn't you support the solution? Was the cost, was the tax impact, was it something else? So that we can reformulate solutions based on data versus based on what we all think. And they're both important. But when we try to build solutions around what we all think, we typically don't get it right because we don't have a good representation of the entire community. So Becky, I didn't think I had a lot something cost effective.
Okay, and I think April has it, can share, a sample of school perceptions survey. Because it was important for me to understand when we say survey, what kind of information we're getting and would it really help propel us forward into our next decision. So if you just scroll up a little bit, April, or down, I guess, yeah. All the way to the first question, thank you. So right there, right, this is a super important question. If you voted, how did you vote? Even if you prefer not to say, but if you voted no, why did you vote no? And right, and we would be creating our own list and generating our own thinking as far as what these check boxes would be. But that is one piece. And then as you continue to scroll down, you know, this school district, obviously this is just an example, but they were looking at consolidating and right sizing, and it goes through, and it ends looking very similar to the survey that we did 2 years ago, right? What's important to you in the school district, and how do you think we should move forward? Again, surveys come with a price tag, non-biased. They send out a code, they keep track of it, we don't see anything until they provide it to us. So that I would align with Matt. I would think that that would be an appropriate way to move forward. It's like $8,200 in the quote that we got from School Perceptions.
Is that just for the survey, or is that mailing? That's
No, mailing we pay for, so that's creating the survey, analyzing the survey, and meeting with us virtually to summarize the survey. So to help us create the questions, draft.
what? What's the numbers? Cost is there besides the mailing is a big chunk, that $8,200, obviously staff time. What other costs are we looking at?
That was all I see on the quote.
I believe that's the majority of the,
Okay, thank you.
I believe that's the majority of the cost, guys. It really is. And I would also say the intangible is school perception's expertise in evaluating information after referendums aren't successful. They're strategists, they work in the K-12 world every day.
Sure.
And I'm not saying you should pay thousands of dollars for that, but that is also something that is an intangible benefit of having their team present as we draft the survey, as we understand how to interpret the data. They do a good job helping me personally not say, I'm biased, I want a project to go ahead. So I interpret data as I wanna see it. And they're like, no, you can't look at it that way, and here's why. So those are the intangible pieces I think that would be beneficial, is not only getting data, A, most important, but B, their involvement in crafting the survey, understanding what the data means, and they also can provide some high-level support on what the likely, or in their opinion, based on data, next best step might be.
Sure.
And they literally name it out in 4 phases, so there's the strategy development, so helping us design the survey, and what we're trying to figure out, the design, the administration, and then the results and reporting. The other part I think is great is they survey in a lot of Wisconsin communities, so they also have benchmarks, so we can compare ourselves to others. Because one of the questions is on here that I looked at, and I kind of chuckled when Matt and I were talking about it, is like, do you believe that your school district manages funds appropriately? Like, I would love to see what the feedback is on that survey across the state of Wisconsin. He said, well, if you use that question, you will get that information.
And when would we, you thought, like, when you might wanna do this? Like, now, next year?
I think when Matt and I talked, and with the whole leadership team, we were all like, it's a now. When I say now, it can't be tomorrow, because it's gonna take some time, but while the fire's hot, where people still remember what they were thinking and feeling during this time. Because if we wait till spring, or until fall, are people gonna remember what they were feeling at this moment in time, because that's most important.
And Becky, I did actually talk to Bill Foster, the owner of School Perceptions, a couple hours ago in anticipation of that question, and he agrees that you move with urgency, which is not normally what he says. If we're drafting a survey, normally we take time, we create it correctly, but when we're truly looking to dig back into why something wasn't supported, he said generally the sooner the better, because things, opinions, economic situations are still current versus waiting a year. A lot changes, right? Things are different for everybody, and they may have voted yes, or they may vote no a year from now versus today. I also just looked up earlier today what happened in Rosendale, Brandon, which is the sample you have on the screen. And they failed a referendum in April of 2022 for 29.7 million. And they came back and passed a referendum in April of 23 for 35.7 million. I don't think increasing the total dollar amount is normal. My guess is that's an anomaly specific to Rosendale's situation. But I'm guessing if we had a meeting with the Rosendale team, they would acknowledge that the data they received through this survey was instrumental in them finding a path forward. I don't know that for sure, but that's my guess.
I think my last question for right now, I don't know if you know this, Matt. From what I recall with my time on the board, we've typically surveyed more in the fall time. Is there good responses surveying at this time of year?
So we typically survey in alignment with a referendum. This is not specifically that. Right? We're not saying we're going back in November or April or anything else off into the future.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, we're better off surveying the sooner the better. And I haven't asked school perception specifically, but if we're in April today and if the board says go, I would guess because it's not a survey specifically asking about option A versus B versus C versus D.
Yep.
I would guess they could probably get this going in the next 4 to 6 weeks if we approve quickly. And that would give us data so that we could analyze the data over summer.
Yeah.
And then formulate a strategy based on that. Again, I'm not saying we know what or if there is a referendum off in the future at this point.
Right.
But we could then get data early in summer, which would allow the board and our teams to work over the summer on what's next, if there is a what's next.
Well, I just worry about like families being gone for the summer and checked out, so if it was during that time frame, that I would just feel like you wouldn't get many responses, but if they're already in by then, that was different.
So in general, we try to avoid summer surveys.
Right.
I think the answer would be in this case, and we actually have another client doing the same thing. I'm having this conversation with them on Friday. We're successful, need to get data. I believe we're gonna kind of force ourselves to get out on the street with that survey right away, meaning try to get the survey in people's hands no later than early June, because if we wait till September or October, which would be a more typical landing time for a survey, we've lost the immediacy of and the relevancy of the failed referendum in people's minds.
I agree.
So if the board wants to go the route of survey, and I'll be just very frank, I think it's really our best bet in terms of actually getting data to use in response to what happened. I'd ask that if you agree, we move quickly, we approve the survey proposal, and the school perceptions team, this is a good time for them as well, because all their surveys for next November have just gone out. So I'm guessing if we can all move quickly, they can get something in front of the board in the near term, and hopefully we can get this in mailboxes sooner rather than later.
And Matt, maybe you don't know, but what kind of percentage would we need returned from surveys to consider it like a good amount?
Yeah, so they typically get 18 to 20% response rate. Now that seems low. The key number is if we get 400 responses from non-parent staff. I'm sure you guys are sick and tired of hearing me say how important that group is, but that group has 70 to 75% of your community, which is typical. If we get 400 responses from them, the data locks in. There's probably a margin of error somewhere in the neighborhood of 5%. And then as that 400 non-parent, non-staff surveys grow to 450, 500 and up, the margin of error just drops from 5 to 4. The best you're ever going to get is 2 to 3%. But the target is 400 non-parent, non-staff respondents, and then the data starts to really lock in. And I appreciate that seems low, right? 18 to 20% for a lot of people are going to say that's really low. If you talked to a political pollster who uses old school phone polling. They're gonna call 400 people or 800 people that meet the split of the demographics that they predict for that ward or that area, and they're gonna make a prediction based on that. So the goal here is to get as much input as possible. I would guess we might see a little higher return rate this time because it's hopefully gonna be a shorter survey. The shorter the survey, the higher the response rate. And I'm also guessing people have opinions on this. So I'd argue the quicker we get this out, the better the response rate likely will be.
We've talked about survey a lot. What other pieces are y'all thinking about as we move forward?
So I got a clarifying question, Matt, your commitment with us prior to me coming on the board, so I'm not familiar, so I'm just gonna ask, and, I'm not trying to ask a loaded question, I just wanna have understanding. What is your commitment with the obligation of us going forward with another referendum, or is the contract with you done at this point, or what's that look like?
No, we charge a singular fee for referendum support, whether that's one referendum or, fortunately, I will say I've never had 5 referendums, but our commitment is from the outset that we are with you until we find success, or you decide to stop pursuing referendums or go in a different direction. So there's no continued financial obligation to Bray, assuming you want to continue the partnership.
Okay, thanks.
He said thanks, I still had you muted because, or us muted, because that's why you're getting the feedback, so. Sorry.
All good. You're welcome. My account doesn't agree with my response, but you're welcome.
I keep coming back to the elementary school and the projects that are needed to be done down there. And I know we had talked about potentially, like, is there a cost to just do what needs to be done down there? Like, what is that cost?
Great question, and actually behind the scenes, we've begun, we've kind of evaluated the prior facility condition assessment, and are working currently on updating that to address things, obviously the IT infrastructure, the fiber's been addressed, so those little things. And then we're actually working with the Myron team on updating, what would it take, don't change a wall, don't move anything, just bring the current building up to speed. Address our oldest roof sections. You as a board will eventually say, let's limp it by, or let's go all in. That's not obviously a discussion for tonight, but we're gonna try to build options around current elementary, so you can not only understand as a board what the needs are there financially in the next 2 to 10 years, but also could it decide if you want to consider options where you would stay there for a longer period of time and make a larger investment. So, not suggesting that's a big dialogue this evening, whether we should or shouldn't stay there. We've had that conversation many times as a group. But the the budgets are stale on what would it take to fix that building up. So we are working on updating those for you.
That's a great word, stale. Would that include bringing it up to ADA compliant?
Yes, it would be ADA and I'll say all of the infrastructure needs. Right now, we aren't going to look at take out a wall, make classrooms larger, tear down a section. That'll come next. But I
like
think the
security
budget
features?
will at least help understand what is a near-term, mid-term, long-term need if nothing else changes in terms of the footprint of that building.
Thank you.
And that would include a secure entrance, because that's a real need.
Yeah, and that's a great question, Becky. I did not include that initially, but I will, right after this meeting, reach out to the team and say, let's come up with a couple ideas on how we could create a secure entrance there. As we all know, there's complications, right? It's not ADA compliant to have the secure entrance. It's not the simple of solutions, but we will find an answer, and we'll look at what's the most economical as option A, just to get us by. And if, let's just say the board or the community says we need to stay here for 10, 15, 20 years, what's maybe maybe a bigger investment that would create that secure entrance, but I appreciate you bringing that back, Becky, because that is a piece that's been on hold for 3-4 years now, at least the duration of my involvement with the district. That's a piece that's been needed there, and it constantly been a bit kicked down the road because there was a hope that we would have a long-term solution for the building.
We did add in the security entrance and all of that in my time on the board. I don't remember when, right before the pandemic, probably. So, I mean, that was, it's not like nothing's been done, but we knew that to make a whole, yeah, absolutely.
Well, and to be fair, for those in the audience that aren't familiar with the building, it's not like it is not secure. It has the basic level of security that we would wanna see in a school building. It's not the ideal solution if it's our elementary school for the next 5, 10, 15 years. There would ideally be more enhancements made. So I don't wanna send the wrong message that it's not a safe building. It just could use a little additional update in terms of how we process visitors to the building, if it's gonna be in our inventory for the long term.
Thoughts?
I stand by that we got the ask wrong, and the only way we're gonna know how to move forward is to get feedback. And we tried to do it cost savings wise last time and did an informational only, questionnaire, and I think we have to do it right this time, so that's where I stand.
Brooke, and I obviously said this earlier, I worry if we don't do a post-mortem survey to understand what didn't we get right in the solution.
You have to call it
Is
something
it tax
different.
impact?
Different word, Matt.
I know, that's weak.
The nurse hates that word, so.
Oh, I forgot. Yes, so after an unsuccessful referendum survey, I think it's important. My fear is if we don't, we're gonna be back in a month or two, and the 5 of us plus your leadership team are gonna be saying, well, what do we think? It's gonna be a lot of opinions, and we're not gonna have data to support what's next. And obviously, knowing you as a group well, I do believe you all want something to happen to address these needs. So if we don't have data, I think it's gonna be very difficult as a group to get around what's next if we don't have the survey data. And I say that appreciating that's an investment. It's not free, doesn't happen overnight, but I do think it's gonna be hard to find a path forward without some data.
Yeah, and I would agree with that too. Obviously there's a cost component to it, right? But in the grand scheme of things, it's not a very big cost component to it. It's where we're going to, right? We're talking 30, 40 millions of dollars, right? And so 8,000 is kind of kicking the bucket, so to speak, but still money, but I think a necessary evil.
Staff time and energy and all that stuff too.
I've heard multiple reasons why people voted no, and I would like to see what the majority truly is, so we fully know where we have to go.
So we need action on this now or later
Well,
tonight?
not in committee, but it would come back to the next agenda.
Also, we can't bring that tonight.
Just conversation.
Jan, anything? I know people don't want us to keep spending money. They've worried about the cost we've already spent on this referendum. So then for us to do a survey, which has a very low percent to come back, I think when we did that survey 2 years ago, we just barely made that 18% or something. And it did break out. It was mostly staff and parents that have kids in the school. We didn't get very many responses back from people that was not a staff member or kids. And so if that's the piece we're targeting, I just don't see it happening probably with another survey. And I know people are really concerned doing surveys that
they stay anonymous, so no one, people can track their answers. Those are all concerns, so. That's kind of where I'm at. I have a lot of questions.
This would be a third party though, looking at the data. To that point, different than like the feedback form we had recently. This is going out of district.
Same thing.
Yeah, Jan, to be fair, the survey data is confidential. There's no way to track, and if you remember, for those that have taken the survey from school perceptions in the past, it comes with a really long alphanumeric code on the front that you have to enter in. And school perceptions doesn't even have any way of knowing where that alphanumeric code got mailed. So they have no ability to know who the survey taker is, even if they wanted to.
Can you remind me, Matt, Matt, can you remind me, do you have to enter an email?
No,
Didn't think
Nope. Absolutely
so.
not.
They just have that
On
code.
the perception survey, there is zero identifiable information, and I will say, I just took one for my district within the last month, and school perceptions has no way of knowing what I responded to that survey, because it was random milled, long alphanumeric code on the outside of the survey. You enter it into their website, and you take the survey. So unless you type in the comments, hey, this is Matt from Ruby, here's what I think, like, yes, then they're good, but for those that just truly wanna provide direct feedback, no way for anybody to know who it was.
I'm almost embarrassed to ask this question out loud. Is everyone here? Corey, buddy.
Can't wait.
The popcorn. And trying to think of how to reach that demographic, non-parent, non-student. Is there any way that, not we, because it certainly isn't gonna be me or any of us, can somehow facilitate going to like the nursing homes to ask people if they wanna do a survey, or other places to try and hit this demographic? I mean, you're not gonna make them, but just to offer it. You know, here's a survey, would you like to submit it, or, I don't know.
The more participation, the better the data, right? And
Yeah.
Jan, to your point, I'm just looking back now, trying to do some quick analysis. The 2022 survey went out from September to October, had 18% response rate. That seems low. The margin of error though was 3.25%. So if we had 18% response in pick a big district, Eau Claire, or Chippewa Falls, or Green Bay, it would look different, right? Because the number of responses would be in the thousands, but the percentage would still be the same, and the margin of error would still be generally the same. So there was 947 total respondents. 90% of those identified as residents of the district. A small percentage didn't know where they lived, which was interesting. And 82% responded that they were not an employee of the district, and 47% replied that they did not have children in the district. So, to your point, Jan, I think driving up the number of participants that don't have kids in the district would be valuable. But at the same time, we had 40% of 947. Don't do math in public, but theoretically, over 400 respondents that didn't have kids and didn't work for the school district. So more is always better. If that was a 50% response rate, we'd have phenomenal data. I've never seen it on the over 100 surveys I've done now with public school districts throughout the region. But the data you still need to know the data is something to be trusted. It's predictive of what people think and of the outcome. School Perceptions has done over 1,000 surveys related to school facilities, and they're still over 95% predictive of an outcome. whether we get a good percentage rate or a bad, it's still predictive of what the community thinks.
Well, and this is a shorter survey. This is hitting, seeking feedback as to why you already acted. So we're not asking them to take and interpret the information to make a decision and then predict the future on how you're going to vote, which is starkly different than what we've done in the past. So shorter, asking why you acted the way you acted, and what could we do as far as feedback goes to get more information from you, and where we're at right now is very different than predictive of the future. So I would think that you're gonna get, I don't think 50% feedback, but I think you would get higher than what we've traditionally gotten, just based on, it's a different survey, and it's a different time frame, and all of those things. Those are all variables that are gonna change the outcome.
It's sad to say, I think the last data I heard from school perceptions was for every 100 words you increase past, and I'm gonna be wrong in these numbers, but something like 1,800 words. So anything past 1,800 words reduces your response rate by 1%.
I believe that.
So the goal would be to write as succinct a survey as possible, so still make sure that we're encompassing all of the information that you as a board feel you need to inform the next step. I don't want people to think that because we got a 18% response, that the data wasn't valid. I don't personally believe that's true.
And if we were to choose not to survey, what are our other strategies to get feedback? I think that's the other challenge that I'm over here going like,
Then what we do?
and it's not a decision that has to be made at this moment in time, but I think we still have to continue to talk about it. Matt, we don't have a board meeting until April 24th to actually take action on this item.
Yeah, I think I can reach out to school perceptions to see what a timeline would look like based on an April 24th approval.
Is that something you want me to do?
You're not agreeing to it, you're just saying, yes, provide us with that information.
Are they ever willing to do pre-work, even if you might say no later? Because they're, I know you gave us this sample, but I'd be very curious as to seeing 4 questions that Osceola might ask that the board could respond to, or is that something you and I could just develop with the team?
I may have a strong enough relationship with the owner of school perception to try to twist his arm next week to see if we could do that before the 24th, but I would rather let that, if we're seeing general consensus at the board level, that is something you're likely to go ahead with.
Got it. Do you all have anything else for Matt?
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, have a good rest of the night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Alright, nothing more on that item then? I think it's item 2.
Well, what's with the, but underneath there's that $1 million authorization limit. There's other things that were on the agenda. Under that building thing that came up. As the spring summer survey did wide or whatever, Matt's reaching out for facility conditions assessment of the current OES.
That's this week, right?
No.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything else with that, right? Review Fund 46 would be item 2B.
April's fighting the screen right now. How can we help you, April?
Continue on, I'm just gonna go forward.
Do you want 50 minutes go up?
No. Is it because I left the meeting? I'll just
Don't mind me.
start speaking to it so that we can hear it. But, you know, as we get closer to the end of the year, we start talking about those transfers between funds, and one of the items that has been asked to be brought forward is that transfer to Fund 46 and for those in the audience that don't know what Fund 46 is, it's a long-term capital improvement fund. It's something that the districts are allowed to start establishing, I think in 15, 16, 16, 17, as a mechanism in order to save towards, some of those larger capital projects that would need to be done in a district. To date, this district has, I believe, transferred about $500 into that fund. It generally happens when you have excess funds, and rather than putting them into fund balance, you put them into Fund 46. Where it becomes beneficial for a district is if you were what is called positively aided, a positively aided district, meaning that you're gonna put this money into Fund 46 and you're not gonna lose any aid, you probably gain a little bit of state aid on it. Whereas if you would have left that in fund balance as a positively aided district, you're not gonna get any aid on it. Osceola has flipped from a positively aided district now to a negatively aided district, by a very small margin, about 0.7%, for this year. So while putting money into Fund 46 this year isn't going to be detrimental, going forward as we kind of continue down that path of being negatively aided at larger amounts, it could be something to discuss. For us at this point, now that we have flipped to negatively aided, leaving money in fund balance is probably a better solution for us. And while that doesn't mean leaving it in there, we can't earmark some of that money to go towards special projects. If you remember at the end of last year, we earmarked about $146,000 to be saved for some sort of capital project or some sort of item or maintenance that would need to be done. So, if I'm hearing you correctly, if we were to, let's just say $100,000 in Fund 46 now versus last year when we put money in there, what's the difference?
Well, last year we were positively aided,
Yeah.
so last year putting money into that Fund 46 rather than leaving it in fund balance would have been beneficial.
Beneficial.
And in fact, we get state aid on it, right? So if you leave it in fund balance when you're positively aided, you wouldn't get that state aid. Well, it's always in relation to the percent of what you are aided, negative or positive. Again, this year we have flipped just over that threshold and we are now at 0.7, so basically 7 cents on the dollar is what that equates to.
What does the projection look like for next year?
Being negatively aided? Yes. Next year and for the foreseeable future, we are looking to be negatively aided, and that's happening because we are declining in enrollment and our property values are increasing. So this is the breakdown in the state funding formula, right? The state is saying your property values are increasing, you don't need as much aid from us, you have it at local level. But we know that as we decline in enrollment, we don't get as much money on the revenue limit because we're declining in enrollment. So that's the breakdown right now in the funding formula.
And Fund 46 hasn't been here forever, that was just instituted in the last
Yeah, I mean, I think they started,
6, 7 years.
I think they started it, I believe in 16, 17, 15, 16. When they started raising that low revenue ceiling from 93 to 97 to 10 if you were below it, districts were seeing excess funds, and so this was a way to allow them to move that money rather than leaving it in fund balance.
Cause we had to use it, we had to not touch it for 5 years, right, yeah.
And we're past that threshold.
Yes, correct.
So right now, I think there really isn't any action, maybe this is just an informational piece to let you know that, while it could have been beneficial in the past if you had access funds to put it over there. I think we just hold at this point, and if the board wants to choose to earmark any of those monies going into fund balance this year for some sort of specific project, maintenance wise, it could be okay.
From what I understand from talking to some of my superintendent friends, is some of them have specific pieces that they put in every year. An example would be the question came up about the turf on the football field, and how are you gonna pay when you need to repair it? So when they do their long range planning, they have that listed, that's tied to this account, and they put a certain amount of money in every year for 10 years, so that when that comes up, they can pay for it. So in our conversations, when we talked about how are other people doing it, that was one solid example. Like, okay, I hear that, because it's intended to be tied to long range planning, which only been here 8 months, so my long range planning is a little bit short, but it needs to get better. But that was the intent, was to have that with a very specific plan of what you were gonna do with that. You have a new building, when you need roofs replaced, we're putting in this much money. And it was also, it's very important to say, but that's also during a time when we had more money back in, is what I was told.
So, like devil's advocate, maybe you can explain for everybody too, why would we reserve money or have money or funds to put into this when we're projecting a deficit spending for next year?
Yep, so it really would only be applicable for this year because we're projecting a surplus of funds at the end of this year. But we knew that going in, specific for the purpose that after this operating referendum fell off, that we would then flip to, having a deficit. So obviously, you know, we can do that in those deficit years. So our options were with the deficit, or with the surplus, we could put it in fund 36, or we could earmark it in the fund balance. And what you're saying is it's gonna be beneficial to our district to keep it in the fund balance, and we can earmark it for projects and things that we see fit, but for the state aid purpose, it's gonna serve us better there. Thank you, Shane. Any other thoughts, questions on fund 46? Otherwise, 2C is review the debt prepayment. This is something that we have been working towards. I believe in 22-23, there was a access levy in the debt service with the intention of making that payment, an additional payment on the debt. Unfortunately, there wasn't anybody here last spring to facilitate that. Fortunately, the bonds were not callable at that time, so had that payment been made last year, it would cost us about an extra $15,000. So now the bonds have become callable this year, and we're gonna move forward with now what's called a prepayment. So you can see the timeline that Barry has provided us, and then also what that new debt schedule would look like. And by making this prepayment, it would save $89,000 roughly in future interest costs.
I see that you have it at 950, but when I went back and looked at the 22 revenue limit.
So 954. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
A little bit higher, but then the interest that the school has earned since last January, when the tax payments started to come in till now, shouldn't that get added to that payment as well? Because the schools make interest by holding on to that money, the district, sorry. So shouldn't we be doing that in addition to that 954? It should include the interest for the whole time because the tax payments started coming in January.
January, February is when you receive the funding for it. I mean, you certainly could, I could have her rework that for the estimated amount of interest. I'm guessing she didn't have it in there because she probably just didn't know what the percentage of interest was for where it's sitting. But she
Yeah.
could rework the figure to include that interest from, say, likely 2/1/2023 through probably when the majority of the money had been fully received.
Don't you receive the interest into Fund 39, or the debt fund? So you would just have whatever the interest income was,
Right, and
and
she's
use
not,
that total?
she's only pulling off of what the levy dollars were, right? She didn't ask us what the interest was in order to make that calculation. She's pulling it straight off of what she can see in terms of the additional excess levy. She's not looking at the fund balance within that account or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah. It wouldn't be hard for her to rework the payment amount for what that would be.
It's just higher than just that 950.
So there's a prepayment savings in future interest costs, but is there a cost that comes with debt prepayment? Not with the debt, I mean, there's gonna be some, Quarles is gonna need to work up a resolution. There's that, you can see them, if you flip around, you can see the bond council fee is at 850 on there, so that would include that, working up a resolution, putting all of that paperwork together. Compared to if it was a defeasance payment, it would have been $12,000-15,000 in fees. Okay. So again, just for information, we'll bring the resolution back and I can have Debbie look at those numbers.
to modify them slightly, and then taking action on the 24th.
Maybe seeking clarity on where the interest went, if it just went to Fund 10 or if it went to.
It went to, no, Jan's right, it goes to Fund 39, but Debbie didn't pull she didn't ask for the balance sheet, she pulled it strictly off the revenue limit, so she wouldn't have known what that interest was. Cause it's not a typical practice, a typical practice is you're just pulling off of the rev limit, your excess that you are levying, so we'll just get her the actual fund balance on the annual.
It's on the agenda tonight.
Oh.
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
Right, because the action is to approve the payment and then bring back the resolution, so they pull all of this stuff together, so that would be two-stepper. I pretend I didn't.
Just realized it's thundering and I have a pet outside, so that's what that was, apologies. All right, anything else on this item? Huh?
Her windows are open in her car, so you can certainly go close that one.
All right, that takes us to item 3, improving our academic achievement with accountability through data-driven practices. And item A is the budget update.
All right, I'm actually gonna stand for this one because I have noticed as I sit in this chair, I only talk to this end of the table. And this is a conversation for all of us to have together. First, please know that being here is an incredible joy. This is actually, when I think about 24 years in the school district, I'm actually kind of shocked that it's been that long. But this is really important work. And as we've been going through this year, please know this isn't new work. These have been conversations that have been happening. Oh, yeah, here. Thank you for having two computers on every app. You should then. Pause, please. Your regularly scheduled program will be back shortly.
And also, I think the budget's still Run, Emma, run.
I'm surprised
Since you stole mine.
So staff area will recognize a lot of these slides because we've talked about them before in meetings, but the purpose for being in a conversation with slides is to provide transparency, accountability, and show how we're making informed decisions within the district. With that being said, we all know communication is key to the success of any system. It's right now budget and staffing season. This is when all of that happens. Collaboration is the most powerful tool to get things done in any system. We have all spent a lot of time together recently, I would say over the last 3 months, well, not for Terry, but closer, right? Talking about how are we gonna do this, what's it gonna look like, how do we make sure that we're best serving our students and being responsible to our community? And building trust is imperative. We hear often, right, they're not transparent enough, we're not sure, we don't know. So the best way, in my opinion, to do that is to have the conversation and to look people in the face and make sure we're sharing. And also, I'm a big believer and subscriber to Dare to Lead and Brene Brown, and one of her biggest messages is clear as kind. Sometimes we don't wanna say it because it's gonna make people uncomfortable, but being clear is being kind. So again, our foundation, this is who we are as a district, this is our vision, this is our mission. We're here to inspire, we're here to empower, and we're here to impact. That's who we are, and these are how we get there. With that being said, there were 3 district goals set as I came into the position in August, and one of them was doing a comprehensive assessment of district operations, making sure that we're keeping kids safe, but also being fiscally responsible. I intentionally put all these students here to remind us that this is the work that we do. Because oftentimes in these meetings, we don't talk about students because we're talking about the governance piece. But please know that's the base where I come from and everybody around this table comes from. So there's 3 big rocks that we're gonna talk about. We're gonna talk about the HOES. So what's our plan to move forward? We're staying there, so what are we gonna do? The decline in enrollment, it's been happening slowly over time. We now need to respond because it's being projected to continue. And financial projections. We've talked about it, we've seen it, we're facing a budget deficit. So what are we gonna do about that? So right, these are the 3 rocks for today. So big rock 1, we're following up on an unsuccessful referendum. We need to strategize the next steps, right? We need to minimize the strain on that current building because we're gonna be living in it. And we wanna limit the repair costs until we figure how we're gonna move forward. But we do need to look at fixing the roof. I mean, when it rains, we literally have a phone tree that we're contacting each other, who's going in, how are we gonna look at it, what do we need to do? And I really believe in this, the hope is not a strategy, it's just not. Luck isn't a factor and fear is not an option. We have to move forward for the good of our kids and our community. Big rock 2, most of you have seen this repeatedly about the declining enrollment. I can tell you, being in this district for 24 years, like I said, there has been the increase and then there's been this steady decline. It's hard to respond to the steady decline because it's not a whole grade level suddenly that's down to 50 students. It's this 5 students here, 8 students here. Oh, we had a graduating class of this and then we have less 4K in our numbers. But now we've lived it long enough that we have to respond. And just right there at the bottom, you see we're a negative 213 in the last 5 years. If you just do fun, easy math by $10,000 a student, you can see that's $2.1 million. It's a lot of money, and that's adding up. Those of you who've spent some time with me know that I really dug deep into the enrollment pieces because I needed to understand if it was an Osceola piece, if it's just Western Wisconsin, or if it's bigger than us, and it's clearly bigger than us. So this is from the Applied Population Study people down at Madison, and this is the 10-year projection of how public school districts are gonna move forward in Wisconsin. And then of course, just digging a little deeper, and I promise I won't go much further into this, but this is by category, city, suburb, town, and rural. And you can see, again, these are studies, these are projections, but enrollment's going to continue to decline in Wisconsin. This is a picture of some analytics for our specific school district. The orange line is enrollment, the blue line is FTE change. So that's full-time equivalency, so that's staffing overtime. So it starts at 2007 and it ends at 2023. And you can see, like, if you're like me, right, you look at charts quickly and you're like, what is going on here? What's this right here? Well, I put up there our failed referendums. So we did some reductions one year. But then what you also notice, right, is we steadily went back up. So right now we're at our lowest enrollment and we have our highest level of staffing. We have to address that.
Becky, can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
So here we have here we have student head count, but that's different than the number on the last one, or is that the same? Because people always get them confused.
And it also depends on if Grand County is included on all of those.
Yes. Thank you for asking that. And then rock 3 is the finances, right? We've looked at this, so blue is current year, this is where we're existing right now. This is next year. So next year, we're predicting a $2.6 million deficit. And for the staff in the room, that's actually more than it was in the last time we had a conversation with you, because we have some other factors, right, that have gone in. So this is always a, what do you call it, a live model?
So, it will change again before we get to a finalized headcount, right, finalized aid.
The other thing that we've talked about often in this room, but the idea of what is fund balance and putting money in. So our policy says our fund balance should be between 20 and 30%. And you can see we're up here. So if we change nothing, we'll be at 23% in our fund balance. So there has been planning in the district for looking forward over time, okay? But again, that's if we change nothing. It's really important to say that out loud. So how are we gonna do with Big Rock 1? What are we gonna do? We're gonna reconfigure next year. So those of you sitting in the room who've heard me say that there's no super secret plan to reconfigure next year, yep, plans have changed again, and we're going to make, not a full reconfigure, but we are gonna reconfigure. So we're gonna utilize the existing space that we have, right? We have these capacity studies, we have population studies, we have some existing space. So shifting 1 grade out of OES. So moving 2nd grade from OES to the intermediate school. It's about 113 students, 5 to 8 staff members. That will help us decrease the foot traffic. It'll help us minimize the physical strain, the bathrooms, the classrooms, all the spaces, so we'll ease some demand on facilities. I did ask Bruce specifically at the elementary school, would this really be helpful? And he said absolutely it would. Maybe we'll get more time out of it. Shifting 5th grade to the middle school next year. We have existing space. We have some attrition and retirements that have happened for staffing, and there's more to come on that in a minute. So we, in order to minimize the prolonged disruption of staff, we can allow team to create bonds, because there's gonna be teams that are gonna make switches. We think moving now, and when I say we, I mean people across the table from me. And this would also allow Julie to remain the elementary intermediate school principal, saving us an administrator. There's more to come. Declining enrollment. So we analyze where we are. You have to take a deep look, right? Where are we? So we look at class sizes by grade level and staffing levels. And I can tell you, one of the mistakes I made in the referendum wasn't explaining this well enough. In particular, what kindergarten and 4K need as far as space and educational learning opportunities. So people, I didn't do a good job when you look at the diagram. When we talked about adding that addition, it was 4K and K classrooms, because that kind of space isn't available at the current intermediate school or at the middle school. Now you can put 4K and K at the intermediate or at the middle school or at the high school. But those classrooms are really specialized. Those aren't available right now at that building. And then looking at staffing levels. So this is a lot. So I'm gonna stand up here and try to explain a little bit about how numbers are determined in a school district, okay? So if you look at, for example, 4th grade, there's 89 students that are 4th graders. If you take that by 5 teachers, the class size is, I'm sorry, we'll do 109, we'll do 5th grade. There's 109, 5th grade, there's 21 students in that classroom. So you can see how the grade levels have all different pieces. Like when Shaw went through, my daughter graduated last year, there was like 157 students in her class. That was a really big class. But as you can see, in my time here, when I was at the middle school, we only had 1 class that was below 120, and that was my other daughter's. Now when you look at this, 4K through 5, there are only 2 grade levels that are above 100. So again, it's hitting, as you can see, over time. The other thing, when you look at sections like 6, 7, and 8, you can see there's 96 students, and again, this is for next year. This is based on our January count. And it's assuming nobody moves in and nobody moves out. So a lot of assumptions, but that's
what you have to do to actually get to solid numbers. So when you see 367 plus, we don't know how many more 4Kers we're gonna have show up. We know we have 81 for sure. But there's also another 20 that are sitting there, we're waiting for paperwork. So potentially they could show up. So you can see what the shift that we're talking about making. This is a big deal. This is the middle school, going down by 1 teacher per grade level. What does that look like? Well, it's gonna have about, when you look at our typical core class sizes, because I can tell you one thing that I've learned over my time in Osceola is class size matters to our community or to our families. And that's important. And when you look at what we could do by making the adjustment, those class sizes are still really, really reasonable. The black up there is just, you can see first grade has 6 sections, that's a bigger class. So it will be bumping to, that teacher will be bumping to 2nd grade. Okay, so again, looking at the shift like this. So then we go to the next phase, which is when we reconfigure, what does it look like? What are the numbers? So you can see combined, the 4K versus 4 would be 537. The middle school would be 409. And the high school would be 489. Now remember, 4K, K, and 1 staying at the elementary in that building. So is this the ideal for lots of people? No. Is it a practical response to where we're at right now in our district? We believe that it is. And finally, the last one, we need to right size, you can call it stabilize, or you can call it reduce. We have to. $2.6 million. We can only survive 1 more year by going into the general fund if we do nothing. So attrition through retirements and resignations. So an example, when we talk about those middle school staff members, right? Shannon Busick's 5th grade teacher, she retired. Somebody from one of those teams could move into that position. So we don't have to make a reduction. The same for, we have a position that a 5th grade teacher resigned from 5th grade math. Somebody can go into that position. So you hear me saying 5th grade with intention, that's why we're talking about moving it now. Because that team is gonna be recreating in some ways. Bring them over now as opposed to have this common uncomfortable feeling of what's next, when's it gonna happen, oh, I'm gonna be here, now I'm gonna be there, and not make it uncomfortable. And again, we also have positions that are open just based on internal shifts. So it's important to say, like, our plan is gonna touch every corner of our district. Administration, support staff, certified staff. There will be some non-renewals. That's gonna be horrible, because these are my people. All movement, that's a little emotional. All movement has and will be based on licensure. We literally looked at everybody's license and have been having that conversation. Who's next? How? What's the best thing for kids? That's what we do. We wanna have minimal impact on students. There's one sitting back in the corner. They deserve the best education they can get. There's one sitting outside that was laughing at me as I was running to my office. Where are you going? I don't have all my things. Right? We wanna preserve class sizes. That's what our community values. So that's what we're trying to do. And we wanna maintain programming. We have excellent opportunities for our students in all the corners of places. So we want to do that. And, right, I can tell you right now, people sitting in the room, they're probably, some unhappy, some are saying, I knew it, and some are just completely uncomfortable, and I'm sorry for that. I am. I don't like that it has to happen, but it is our reality, and we need to face it, and it's gonna impact our culture. But we have a choice, right? We always have a choice, and that's how we respond. So moving forward, what does it look like now if we make this $1.2 million in reductions? Use the fund balance to maintain the other piece. Our fund balance still stays at 29%. So we are effectively, when you look across, we still have an issue, right? So we're not done, and we know that. But this is where we are right now, and that is the best that we can do. we believe for right now to be responsive. So moving forward, there'll be a 4K1 OES, a 2-4 OIS, a 5-8 OMS, and a 9-12 high school. We need to engage all the departments. We've had lots of conversation as a team, but we've only been talking to each other. Keeping things close to the chest was really, really important because we had to talk through the conversations and make sure this was right for our community and our school district. And we do believe that it is. But there are lots of pieces. So if you think we have a master plan that is well developed, we've literally been doing this for 1 week. Thursday after our board meeting, we started meeting and talking specifically about, okay, now what's the action? We have been talking all year about how we're gonna deal with the deficit, but the actual plan and putting these slides together has been a week in motion. We need to explore the cost of renovating OMS. What's it gonna take, right? It was part of the plan, but how much movement do we need to make? How much does it cost to convert a couple classrooms that were offices? Where are we gonna put certain people? So that's important. We also need to get some estimates how to fix the roof, so that's important. We may need to explore Fund 38, which is through either a state trust fund loan or a loan from a local bank for up to $1 million to make all of this happen. Do I know that that's true? No, but I wanna put it out there again in the effort to be transparent. Please know, like, one of the big pieces is how do we help staff be most comfortable and make sure that they're compensated. We're gonna pay all staff through timesheet. If they have to move a classroom, we're gonna help them. We're gonna have people here to help them, but we're also going to pay them. As well as the idea, if you're moving a grade level, please understand I'm not trying to insult staff to say that 2 days paid is ever gonna prepare you for that, because it's like going back to being a new teacher. The good news is you still have the skill set that you have right now that you can put into your classroom, but that's a lot. So 2 days over the summer plus 4 in-service days, and here we go. And we will have fall parent-student, because we are not gonna be prepared this spring. You don't wanna bring people in and say, hey, here's what the schedule is gonna be, as we're making sure that it can happen. Because we also acknowledge as a team that some people may leave as a result of this. Is that what we want? No way, not at all. Because we are like an Osceola team, we're an Osceola family, but that could be a reality. So up next, we're gonna communicate reductions over the next few weeks. We're gonna communicate reductions and the staff that are impacted. So closing thoughts, super important that I have these words to say to you. As we embark on this journey of reconfiguring reductions, it's important to acknowledge the gravity of this situation. The reductions we're planning, totaling approximately 1.2 million, will touch every corner of our district, administration, support staff, and certified staff alike. These decisions have not been easy, and they will undoubtedly impact our culture. The individuals involved in these discussions over the next few weeks are going to be profoundly affected, and it will undoubtedly hurt them to the core. Even though, as I said, it's all about licensure, it's still a personal piece. However, it's essential to realize or recognize that this action is necessary to ensure that we remain financially responsible and safeguard the future of our district. We're faced with difficult choices, but we believe together, with courage and determination, we can navigate through these challenges and emerge stronger than ever. Okay, board, what are your questions? And please know it's not just me alone. We've got a full team of people here to answer.
What do we proceed with our communication plan? How do we want to approach that?
The thought that we had is tonight, we will send these slides to the whole, all of the staff, and then tomorrow to the community. And with the reference, clear as kind, here it is. If you have questions, there's a whole team of people that you can reach out to.
When do we envision that we would be talking of those that would be directly impacted?
for reductions and non-renewals within the next 2 days. And over the next couple days, or the next week for people who need to make shifts.
Yeah, no doubt.
For sure. I can't tell you how appreciative I am to have a team of people that can come around the table and have real conversations. What else?
Other than it doesn't feel good for anybody.
It doesn't feel
Right,
right.
I didn't really know what to say right now.
No.
I, first,
First as well, absolutely. I can't believe I got emotional. I've been talking about this with these people, like I'm gonna go home and be like, okay, that's real Becky, that's what you got. And I have every confidence that this team is gonna handle it with compassion and poise, but it's gonna be hard.
my worry, at this second in my head, my worry is around, there's going to be kids tonight that know about this, that go to school tomorrow. And I don't know the answer. Are staff talking to kids tomorrow, or are they waiting till they get home, or was communication not going out to community until tomorrow? So if there's a gap there, I don't know the right or wrong, because tonight seems too soon to send anything to community. But I don't want rumors to fester either, because rumors make everything worse. That's where I'm in my head right now.
We did talk about, do I send something out to the community tonight so they get it? And we felt we owed it to our educators to have a minute to kind of digest it themselves. And I know I can't control the weather, and I know I can't control social media. Those are two things I know for sure that are not within my control, and that's unfortunate. Because I guess I would like to control the weather, but.
Social media is my other big fear,
Yeah.
culture.
It is gonna be a culture piece, and I hope people see it for what it is. It's we're trying to be as responsive as we can, and that we care deeply about our people. And we are trying to manage within a budget the best that we can for right now. And we didn't hit $2.6 million, because we weren't willing to go that deep right there. That would impact programming, and that would impact students. And all that you've all advised me in my time here is that we wanna limit the impact on students.
Well, and this wasn't a direct impact because the referendum failed. This is a separate issue that we've known about and have been talking about for a while. So, they have to know that it's not because the referendum failed, we're just doing this.
But at the same time, the plan might look drastically different if we were building a different building.
I was gonna
We
say
would
yes
still
and no.
have that 2 million to cut next year out.
Right.
Whether we have that building or not.
Right. Who
But we
knows?
I
also
mean-
have to get kids out of elementary school.
Right, but, we have that deficit, and we've known it for a while.
Agreed.
We just never brought it forward.
The money
Before the
hasn't
referendum vote.
Jen, I would say we brought it forward. We've talked about that deficit multiple times, because I don't want the community ever to think we were trying to hide anything. And that slide has been up, I actually went to, I go, how come it looks different again? Because it's this living document of all of our budget updates have had that picture of the negative 2.3, 2.4, 2.6.
And that's what it comes with referendum. Population.
And I would also say to you, and I didn't cover this, but I'm thinking it right now, is like, when we get to staff wages, like, I'm not interested in freezing staff wages, which makes the deficit different, right? Like, we're willing to address that because it's important. And I've been in this district, like you have, Craig, when we've frozen, and that's terrible.
But I do know that we're hurting right now, and it's gonna get worse before it gets better. Those staff are gonna go in their buildings and teach their kids the right way, and they're gonna be positive, and they're gonna be doing the work that needs to be done.
the beauty of education is people are here for purpose work. They do these jobs because they love what they're doing.
We care about kids.
Do you think we could carve out any times for, let's say, a debrief session with anybody impacted? So like, I don't know, if we make our administrators available to talk to folks that are impacted once they find out, like, end of the day or lunchtime, I don't know, just kind of a debrief or a venting session. I'm sorry to say it any other way.
It's better than
Gotta
most
take,
boredom.
yeah, gotta take
Call
the,
it that.
yeah. So, I don't know if that would help. I mean, some people are probably gonna be pretty hacked off, no doubt, right? I mean, would they even take advantage of an offering of such as that? But I still wonder if that's not something that would be worthwhile.
Well, and this isn't unique to Osceola, I mean, that's the other thing I've been hearing, is other school districts are in very similar circumstances. Superior, down to Madison, down to, I mean, unless your enrollment is increasing. And we saw that one graph that showed our FTE over time, we were at that crux last year of the perfect staff ratio-ish, right? But we still went down, and from last year in students, so,
Price Lake also made a lot of reductions, and I have had lots of conversations, because again, I'm new, and the part that I have found difficult, or we as a team have found difficult, is the timing. It's, you have to have time to have a conversation with people, and connect with the people, and share the information, and then there's all these other pieces.
Well, and timing part of it too is so many things at one time. It's not just reduction, it's a reconfiguration, it's a this, it's a that, it's a lot at one time. The new superintendent past year, like, and it's just a lot happening. And I know you've talked about the pros of doing pieces of it at a time, or just working with, like, I know it's been all that very thought about. Good.
Yeah, because there isn't one person on the team who said, we shouldn't do this, and that is power.
Alright, well, for the 617, we've got a couple items still before us, anything else on this item right this second?
Yeah, I just want staff, they need to understand, none of us want to do this. Me especially, being a teacher, I know what this feeling, I'm like sick.
Alright, that takes us to item 4, administrator and department reports. For admin reports, let's start with Scott Newton.
All right. So just a little recap from last week, last Wednesday, from the Polk County Public Health and all schools, high schools in Polk County received the same presentation. We had a visit from the Lionheart Experience group out of Detroit, Michigan, that provided a presentation to our student body for an hour and a half. And overall, I talked to a lot of kids and stuff about the experience, very musical. They were very interactive with our students and staff, well received from the experience that the kids had.
Can I ask you where the picture's going?
We are planning to put it in our comments area, just haven't had time yet for that, but we'll do it up in the comments. Yeah, it was pretty cool experience.
Colin came home with the signature from the rapper.
Oh, is that
I
right?
think it hit every student in the
Yeah.
building.
On a shirt?
No, his cell phone.
Yeah, they brought their own merch.
Okay, good, he didn't buy anything,
They're
great.
buying a lot of stuff, and, which was awesome. And like I said, the impact in there, you never know, when you put a bunch of high school kids in the gym, you never know how it's
Yeah.
gonna go, and it makes me nervous now as I'm in this role.
He did
And,
tell me he had a
overall,
sore
it's awesome.
back though from sitting.
Yeah, I think the bleach is a little different, usually when I was running for that, but
Understand.
it was good. Prom is coming up, April 20th. We are going back on the boat again. At this point, we have a lot of tickets sold, and again, looking for a great night, hopefully great weather, this year. Last year, we went through a thunderstorm. Starting tomorrow night is our spring play, musical starts, tomorrow night, Little Shop of Horrors. So again, they're gonna be Thursday through Sunday, a lot of great kids and people are working through that. Spend a lot of time there at the school till 9 o'clock, late at night, put a lot of time into that. So looking forward to attending that. And then also, something a little different here, but I think it's also good with talking about our alumni that come back. On April 19th, we have Nick Rogden. He's actually, I believe, a 2009 grad, coaching football, great kid. He's a talker, or was a talker, I should say. But he is now working for Love Green Industrial Services, and he's coming on the 19th to talk to students about millwright work and provide opportunities to some of our seniors and whatnot, and job opportunities that are out there and looking to get apprentices, I guess, and starting fresh out of high school. So I think we're gonna do it in the same time frame as our Metals 2 course, and then inviting all other kids that want to attend, but another great opportunity for kids that wanna go away from school to work and have a great opportunity.
All right, so huge shout out to Lori Maypark and Sarah Britton and Sarah Hankey and Michelle Britton. I just combined them in one person. We are in the midst of scheduling, and it is a whole lot of work and a whole lot of learning for Scott and I to figure all these things out too, but it's been really fun and interesting, lots of learning, but those ladies are working really, really hard. It's a lot of very detail-oriented work, so just shout out to them. We're kind of in the process of just cleaning up course requests, and then we'll work on course sections, and then create a schedule after that. So lots of steps for scheduling. We had a successful ACT day a couple of weeks ago, so everything there was a little flaw. The 9th grade test was listed as a 10th grade test. That threw everyone off for a little bit, but it was all okay, so we got that figured out. We tried something new this year. We did a course fair in the afternoon, kind of based off of what teachers wanted, just especially for our core teachers, have a little time one-on-one with kids or in small groups of kids. Not only to just talk about like math, but their pathway in math, and if this is what you want to do for your career, then here's what I would continue to suggest for you instead of just falling into a pattern. And then we did electives in the gym as well. Lots of positive feedback. Even some of our juniors were like, wow, we wish we would have had this 2 years ago, because that would have been really beneficial for us. So we are just gathering some feedback right now on what we need to do to change for next year, because there's always little things that we can work out. It was our first year, but lots of successful feedback from that. We have conferences on April 24th. Graduation stuff is already being all figured out, so that's kind of crazy, but we're already getting ready for that. And then I just wanted to do a shout out to Mr. Ate and Ms. Rowdy and their band and choir participants. They had 43 students perform, and many of those are had some high school and were moving on. So congratulations to them and their musicians. All right, how are you doing, middle school?
Well, it's forward testing season. Started off this week with our 8th graders, with myself and Allison being moved to the district and testing. I think Amanda and Lisa's supplement really set us up for success in terms of getting us off on the right foot and having a good plan in place. And a special thanks to our teachers who are building in some intentional movement, because sometimes that seat time gets long, especially for our growing learners. So thanks to them. We had paraprofessional celebration day last week. We provided lunch. So thank you for those folks that help support our classrooms and our special learners. We celebrated Wellness Week. Apparently I can't tell from a calendar, but it would have been March 25th. We had a snow day, so it coincided with our Wellness Week. Student council planned dress-up days, shared wellness facts during advisory. Nutrition staff prepared infused water for everyone to enjoy, which was kind of a highlight apparently, from what everyone said. From like lemon water to I think there's a mint water. So that was great. We ended up Wellness Week with our annual OMS talent show, which was a huge great thing. Like, it was so amazing to see these students up in a different light, showcasing what they really are about, which is really cool. And then we ended with some all-school bingo celebrations. And just a reminder that conferences are coming up April 24th, so that 24th will be a busy day.
All right, Linda.
Yeah, starting with intermediate school, so we had our spring open house on March 27th. It was a great success. That would be our 3rd annual open house. So it turned up the music, opened the building, and everybody came in, and it's always just nice to have those conversations and let staff and families just make it more informal, so that was great. Board exam is underway, so yes, we are all working hard on that. It's like all the year comes into one bundle here. Testing schedules, yes, we always have run into some hiccups, but we get through it. Staff really come together and collaborate and brainstorm ways to get through it to ensure every student has enough time to do the very best that they can. New this year, we're really excited. So Hans Johnson and I have been chatting back and forth, and we're gonna have a day at the farm for our 4th and 5th graders. And I actually ran into Hans tonight at the elementary school spring fair, so we are pumped. We have the date set. I get to drive a tractor, he said, so his wife wasn't real excited, but him and I are pumped, so. No, everything's gonna be fine, so really looking forward to that, just something
better
new.
than when you tried to ride that donkey. Good luck.
Maybe, so, and then our spring concert is May 10th. So for the elementary school, our spring open house was this evening, and the parking lot was jam-packed. On my way over here, I mean, there's cars everywhere, doors were open, and there were families in and out. Having the younger kids come in and just so excited, and come this way, this way, this way. I mean, they're just taking off, and parents are kind of looking. I'm like, go see what's up. And some of our 4K teachers did tea parties, so kids were dressed up and excited, and I was walking around like at actual tea, like lemons were cut. Stacy Bear had lemons cut, she had sugar cubes, she had everything just lined up, and they would have their little teacups. I mean, it was great. And at 5:30 was a school-wide title meeting, and that's, our interventionists came together and created that presentation and had parents go through different stations and making pudding cups and doing all these different things. So just lots of cool stuff for the families to see and walk through this evening. And then our spring concert at the elementary school is May 3rd. So that's what's happening.
So I am doing my spring update. Do you want me to do that now, or do you want me to?
Let's finish you two out, and
Okay.
then let's.
Mine is short,
Okay.
yeah, again, working towards year-end processes. We're starting to talk about closing this year down, and setting up for 24-25, and then continued budget work closing out this year, setting up 24-25.
I just think it's important to talk about, not just doing the work here in the district, but also trying to contact with politicians and talk about how we are moving forward and how laws and legislation impact our school district. And so, Tammy Baldwin actually had her rep and I had a great conversation. Her name is Anna Ringstead, and so now we have a connection. She plans on coming over here. We did have a conversation about how referendums, this is before we had any results, and really can tear our community apart, and how that's not helping the communities as a way to fund schools. She heard me. She also has a grant writer that she said would be more than happy to pair with us. Yes, please. So I have her name and number, and so they have some really good resources for us. But again, trying to build those relationships, and that also goes to, I went to a talent attraction and housing event down at the Village Hall this week as well. People from the county talking about ways to increase housing opportunities so we can get more families to come in, which again, will only help our school district. So trying to do other things besides love students.
So in the fall, you guys heard me chat a little bit about,
I got this word too.
So I was chatting about special education, the coffee shop, and homelessness, and English language learners also fall under my umbrella. So I'll just try to go through this pretty quickly. Lots of words on that slide, just trying to give a little history. Homelessness is supported under the McKinney-Vento Act, and so basically trying to provide some protections for students that are in maybe some transitionary housing, to reduce the barriers to providing their education or access to that education. So some of the rights that they're afforded is, and the things that we try to work through here in Osceola, is transportation to and from school and extracurricular activities, so they can still be involved, kind of waiving some of those fees. So basically it's all based on the school of origin. So if Osceola is the school of origin and something happens with housing and they have to be maybe doubled up with a family member in Somerset, we are still working with that family, we're providing that education to that family so they know that they can still attend here and we can help with that transportation. So yeah, letting them know about the school of origin and that they're still entitled to attend here. Also, if students move in and it is maybe too far away from their school of origin, but they're also maybe doubled up or, you know, living in a motel or things like that, we do have to enroll immediately, even if they might lack some of those appropriate records. We just try to really reduce the barriers for, you know, education, trying to reduce dropout, trying to just still provide access to that educational environment. Local school districts also have to have an appointed educational or a homeless liaison, which is me. So we have to make sure that the public knows that and staff know that to really kind of help facilitate the access to these different resources. Staff completes a survey at the beginning of every year, so hopefully by now, year 4, that they're able to identify that that is me. I also share out a Google form so they know kind of different ways, right? I try to be in all of the buildings, but I'm not going to be the one that's able to identify it. It's really admin assistants or school counselors or classroom teachers. So giving them kind of the tools to say, oh, I had this conversation with the student, and then we kind of do a little bit more digging. We have to basically identify if the housing is fixed, regular, and adequate. And that sounds pretty black and white, but there's a lot of gray and a lot of things that kind of come along with that. So these are just a few of the things that we provide here in Osceola. So again, that education and identification, trying to remove some of that stigma. It's a really private thing. It's not something that maybe a lot of families want to share, but getting them to understand, hey, if this is what is happening, these are some of the supports that we can put in place for you, and letting them know you can stay here. We want you to stay here. Trying to reduce that they're in Amory, they're in Somerset, all of that bouncing back and forth. We want you to stay here. These are our families and we want to support you through this time. They're allowed free breakfast and lunch for that school year. So Susan and I have a shared doc that we kind of go back and forth with, and she lives here. It's, you know, she's right on it and making sure that we are identifying those kids and they know that they can access that. Providing resources for our backpack program, so we work with Open Cupboard, you know, food being sent home. I have a lot of those conversations with the families of, you know, they're like, oh no, we don't need that. Well, you can access it if you want, and then maybe some of the funds can go to other things. So just trying to say, like, here, this is a resource. It's a great tool to, you know, take advantage of. And then the teaching closet, awesome resource at the high school that is, you know, fully, you know, just tons of pieces up there. We've got different students making the middle school that will go up and access clothes or different personal hygiene items. And then also just sharing with families the different community resources. These are a lot of numbers, just trying to give you guys some data over time so you can see kind of the fluctuation. So OES, OS, OMS, so these are the specific students. Some of those are doubled up, you know, with families. This is just kind of historical over time, so you can see we've been hovering, you know, but last year we had a slightly higher number, but pretty consistent in that 20 to the 30s. Moving forward, just really trying to continue to provide some of those resources and education. Really want to, you know, the families, getting them to understand, like, hey, if you are doubled up or if you are living in a motel, you can access some of these resources. So making sure we have that identification. So a new thing that we have put in place is collecting housing data in our enrollment. Because they might not, it's really just asking certain housing questions and then it flags it, and I review that data monthly at this point, so then we can reach out like, hey, this is what you indicated, are you in need of some of these resources? And then yearly in the summer, I just make the phone calls to all of the students on our list and kind of, is there any updates, you know, how are the plans for transportation? Steve is also an awesome resource for that, so.
So Jesse, as you were saying that, something popped in my head. So let's say a family has the unthinkable in their house, burns down. Do they then qualify as government?
Yep. Yeah, which, you know, we've had a few of those, so yeah, yep. And we reach out and kind of
Just a resource
make the
you might
plan.
think of
Yep.
when that happens is that the school is able to help and accommodate in accordance with federal
Yeah,
law.
because sometimes they're staying in a family member in a neighboring town, and yep, but we want you to stay here, so, great question. Okay, English language learners is the other area that I, am gonna just briefly talk about. What services do we provide? So we don't have an English language teacher. How it's provided is through sheltered instruction. So it's really supports that are infused daily into the classroom to try to grow that language proficiency. Really it's students already being supported through our EMLSS process, or equitable multi-level systems of support. We also, if new students move in, we screen them with an access screener, kind of a shortened version. We do the access testing yearly for all students that are identified. You can't opt out of that. We have to provide that assessment. Based on how they score either on the screener or the access test, then we can provide different accommodations on the state assessment. So directions in alternative language, extended time, separate setting, some bilingual dictionaries. We've had ice cream social, just yearly gatherings for identified families to provide some of those resources, sharing how to kind of change the settings on your Skyward settings so it comes in their language, how to update their Google so it will translate for those. We also do offer interpreters, conferences or meetings. We have a language line that they can call in and they can do that. They can also leave messages if we're trying to get a hold of a family. So as long as you just kind of write a script for them. And then providing training for teachers that are working with some of our newcomers. For the last 2 years, we've had teachers go to CISA to attend those trainings. And then we also partner with CISA to get newcomer kits so they actually can share different materials for students in the classroom. These are our numbers. So the students we service at OES 4, OIS 6, OMS 4, OHS 5. I did put in that kind of just overall so that right now we provide sheltered instruction. If you have direct instruction, so hiring a staff and providing direct ELL services, these are how the state divides it up. So if we had K through 3, if we had 10 students identified, we'd have to have specific ELL programming. We have 6. 4 through 8, it would have to be up to 20. We have 8. So you can provide that comparison. We are also working on developing the individual language plan. So here is a link to this. Hopefully we're not going to go through it. I don't want to time crunch, but it's a specific plan for the students that have been identified. Provide some historical data for teachers, kind of what those current either access screener or access test scores are, an explanation of what that means, kind of where they're at with their English language proficiency, different accommodations, and then how that sheltered instruction can happen in the classroom. Moving forward. Again, another part of our enrollment, we've added the home language survey, so again, we can identify and reach more of our families to, that they might need those access screener or be put on our access testing list. Continued development of the ILPs, and then what we're starting to infuse on is the English language development standards, so providing some of that sheltered instruction in all of the classrooms, and then working to develop Osceola's local Title 3 plan to support our EL, so a more comprehensive plan. So those are next steps.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions for Jesse? All right, that'll take us to item 4B, which is the community education report.
Yep. All right, folks, I'm gonna try to rush this as much as I can. I'm also not gonna sit. That's awkward for me. So, I'm the new Community Ed and Aquatic Center Director. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you or running into you. My name is Mike DeLong. Here we go. Strap in. So far, what I've been doing in the last couple months is trying to listen and learn as much as I can. So that came in the form of attending as many events as I could, whether it be early learning days or other things in the school, trying to highlight opportunities that are currently existing or ones that I was trying to bring in to either of those programs. I initiated a community feedback survey. I can tell you the best way to create and get a survey is not just to put it out there and ask people to volunteer to go do it. So don't do that for the other survey we were talking about. I got 14 responses. I'll tell you about those in a minute. That's 100% though. Community interest survey was part of that larger effort to listen and understand, respond well. Community Ed has a huge impact on how people engage with this community and the school. And I think through a stronger program, we can do just that. I've been trying to shift all registrations, catalogs, etc. to a digital format. We've been living in paper for a while. Moving forward for that allows us to be more agile. And then I recently published our first spring summer catalog including many different programs online, via email to the district, and then in the Chieftain newsletter. On the Aquatic Center side of things, a large part of my job has been focusing on staffing, not only recruitment, but maintaining the staff minimal that we have. If you're a subscriber to the pool newsletter, you know that we've had some difficulties with that. The daytime swim patrons are passionate. If you come there during the daytime and watch the lap swimmers, watch the aqua size swimmers, they love the resource we have, they rave about it. So keeping that engagement is key. I've also been trying to learn what other facilities. I've toured one other school and learned through web presence as well, what other schools are doing that have pools, to try to learn from them and gain knowledge there. And then working with OMS staff to complete current projects, whether it be as minimal as it may seem, but if you look on the left there, those benches in the women's locker room were probably installed in 1996 and not touched until a few weeks back. So left and right, just a nice shine up on those. It can go a long way, right? And we have a long way to go. I mentioned that program interest survey, a few highlights. There are a few questions on it. Like I said, 14 responses, but it's only been out for about a month or so. Distributed that in a few different ways. It's out there now. I would encourage you to take it. It's a shameless plug. One of the questions I asked was, what would you prefer to be offered for you or your child, right? Because the community is not just about the kids who are in the school. How can we engage in the entire community? The top 4 were outdoor recreation options, aquatics, fitness or sports, and leisure activities. And then I asked people to give more specifics around those. Current programming, just a quick highlight on the community education side of things. Our standard or our core continues to be those dance classes, music lessons. Driver's ed is a big one that we run. We have a great team here in the district that does that. And then rolling out our spring and summer programs, anything from engineering to art, writing workshops, foraging, DNR partnerships, etc. On the aquatic center side of things, after school swim has been hugely successful. We have 30 plus kids who basically barrel down the doors, rip them off by the time they get off the buses, and just to get into the water. So that's been successful. We're going to keep that going as long as we can. Aqua size classes, lap swims. I just gave some averages of per day visits, and those are repeat and a few new ones. We're hearing about pools shutting in the area, right? So we need to be able to respond to that, and support those people who may need a pool. Outside of that, daily special ed visitors who are using that pool and athletic teams. I'll shift into some opportunities and dreams for each of the programs that I'm thinking about in the future. Would be increasing partnerships with local businesses, not just looking at internal school resources that we might have to engage in multiple voices, whether that be Osceola municipalities, functions like library. I lived in a town called Goshen, Indiana, and they had an event called First Fridays. If anyone's familiar with that, it was a huge gathering. I think that could be a cool opportunity, right, to bring people together around a shared interest. Aquatic center opportunities would be increased lap swims, open swims. This all comes with staffing, of course, but offer new and expanded exercise classes. People are calling and emailing regularly asking for those. Increased school use. There are days when that pool sits empty. So figuring out a way to get more gym classes, more people in those, in that water, in those lanes. Private rentals, I'll talk about that in a second. And then just improved point of sale, visibility of the aquatic center through credit card payments. Right now, we only accept cash or check, right? It's kind of neat, but at the same time, it limits us. It limits us for sure. Anyways, and then some people don't even know, like, who in this room has been to the pool or could find it quickly. Show of hands. Maybe most of the people, it's like a focus group. But anyways, if I were to go out to the community, even when I interviewed for this job, I learned that some people in the community didn't even know it exists, right? So figuring out a way to get people knowledgeable about the pool, getting them to it. It's a great facility. We just need to get people in the water. So, and then staffing. I have a few ideas of how we can actually increase staffing and increase hours. Dreams, if you've been to the pool, we have a wading pool. It's probably used once a month. It's 1.5 feet deep. It's okay, it has a fountain in it, but it's not really flashy. If we're looking to increase revenue around the aquatic center, there are a couple different ways that we could do that. We could actually use that. It already has power, it already has light. So could we use it as a reservation room, just with minimal overhaul, so that people can host parties, observation rooms, meetings, trainings, that type of thing. So I think that'd be a pretty low hanging fruit there. Just wanted to put that out there while I have the floor. And then the building does still look like it was painted in 1996, and it also doesn't match anything else in the building. So if people are going to come to it, it's because it's attractive. The pool is great, but the surrounding facilities need some work. So,
That's not as neat, is what you're saying.
yeah, not as neat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Micah. Questions from Micah? All right, that brings us on to item 5, which is aligning and developing and supporting our staff. Item A is reviewing staff compensation for 24-25.
I would ask, would the board be okay with flipping A and B, just
Yeah,
because we've had our
let's do it.
partners for health here for
Absolutely.
almost 2 hours?
Yeah, let's do our review our 24-25 health insurance renewal option. Thank you. Hi, John.
Hello.
So as you know, this is the time of year when we talk about that health insurance piece, and we've moved, as a district, we moved to self-funded health insurance. I believe this is the 3rd year?
We're entering the 3rd year, yep.
We will be entering the 3rd year, we're in the 2nd year. What that self-funded piece means, it offers the districts some more flexibility in setting those rates that we pass along to the employees. Our plan is running very well. We hold right now about 1.3, almost 1.4 million in those accounts between health and dental. Talking with Julie today, she said typically about 2 to 3 months worth of claims plus, I can't remember the other term that you use, claims plus
Fixed cost.
Fixed cost, thank you. So right now, we have about 5 months potentially worth of that. Some things that we have been looking for in this renewal for this year is making a shift in our family plan. Right now, the deductible is $7,000, and that's a straight $7,000 deductible before you become not having to pay out of pocket anymore. We are looking to transition to an embedded plan, and that's when I'm going to turn it over to John to talk about the embedded plan.
Yeah, for a high deductible health plan, you have deductibles for single and family, okay? And there's embedded and non-embedded. So non-embedded is the plan that you had now. That was selected many years ago. And that means that you have a $3,500 deductible for singles and $7,000 deductible for families. So you have a family, they have to reach $7,000 of out-of-pocket medical expenses before the plan starts paying. After that, the plan starts paying 100%. Really, most plans with those types of deductibles are embedded, meaning that when you have a family, once one person hits the single deductible of $3,500, which is most common, I mean, you typically don't have a family of 4 people and everybody's maxing out their deductible. So once it hits $3,500, the plan starts paying 100%. And the rest of the family members can cumulatively incur medical expenses, and once the whole family incurs $7,000, then everybody's covered at 100%. That's a big deal. I mean, that's the way most most plans that we have and sell are structured. So we had the fact that you're self-funding. I mean, it's a kind of a whole different conversation, but there's fixed cost and then there's expected claims. And the expected claims are just an actuarial projection based on enrollment, how many people in the plan, demographics, your experience, etc. Okay, to move from a non-embedded plan to an embedded plan, you incur no fixed cost increases. The fixed costs remain the same. Okay, so what you have to pay doesn't change. What changes is the expected claims, because you're going to be paying more claims now because families have a lower deductible, essentially.
Potentially pay more claims.
Yeah, potentially pay more claims. I mean, the claim has to happen. So So I like to talk about real money and maybe money. I mean, the real money is the fixed cost. You know you have to pay that. But the maybe money, maybe they have claims, maybe they don't. So the projected claim was around 113,000. That's just an estimate to move to an embedded plan. But by doing this, your plan will be far more competitive, far more attractive, far more comfortable for families, and be way more in line with, you know, other districts that we work with and the general population and the companies we insure all over the place. And it's a great move. And the fact that we moved to self-funded a couple years ago, and the district has made very judicial financial decisions to keep that plan fund healthy, and it's extremely healthy right now. The district can well afford to move to a plan like that. So I think it's a great decision. It's going to be great for the families that have health insurance through the district, and you know, I hope you guys, yeah, it works for you.
So along with that, you know, to keep up with those fixed costs going up, because those fixed costs did go up from last year, or the potential, we're looking at a 9% increase on the premiums for the staff. And while that sounds like it's a lot, the staff cost would go up for a family plan $7.74 a month. So, and if you want to do the math on a single, it's probably about half of that. Any questions?
No, we don't take action on this tonight, right?
No, you do not.
Where are we at with our contract with Health Partners? What year are we in with Health Partners?
You're at the end of a 2-year contract, so the offer on the table was 1 or 2 more years. You know, they've offered a 2nd year contract, so that was the direction that the staff was thinking of moving towards. There's a number of other, positive things with your health plan. I don't know how much you want to get into it, but you know, we have a real dynamic new CEO at OMC, and she worked out a special discount just for Osceola school employees that are on the plan. That's been enacted. It's our plan to have open enrollment meetings with the staff in May and educate people on those special discounts. So that's going to save the plan money. It's saving the plan money right now. It's a 20% discount on lab and imaging, and that's, when you go to the doctor, what do you have? Lab and imaging, right? So that's a big deal. So working closely with them. I haven't told Becky, but she asked to find out how much that they would charge for Clinic, and she said they'll do it for nothing. So we need to write that into the plan going on the renewal. So, but you still have to pay for lab. You have to get your labs at OMC, but that's another nice benefit out there. So she's aggressively working with our local employers, and that's fabulous. And I know Becky's on that board, and so good things are happening, and that's a good partnership.
So John, just to clarify, that's for the next proposed 1 to 2 years, or that's taking place for this last 2-year agreement?
Which is?
These discounts.
The discount was just enacted several months ago, so it was done through Health Partners.
Okay. So they're taking advantage of that now?
Yep.
In this last
But nobody knows it.
Communication.
So we're going to make sure that people are aware of that during these meetings. That's our plan.
Yeah, and then that would be part of any potential future negotiation or renewal with 1 or 2 years, right?
Yeah, John did a really nice job with helping us through that, with the idea of, they came in much higher than 9%. And so John went back to him and said, you know, we want to stay with Health Partners, but we will shop if you don't meet us at a different level. And then they came back and met us at a different level, which is really positive. Yeah. And that embedded piece, again, being new to this role, that will be huge for families. So that's and being self-funded and having to go through that and learn that, as y'all did, it's very positive for our school district right now.
Well, that fund balance that Shannon mentioned, I mean, that would be in the pockets of health partners. That wouldn't be in your bank account right now if you had not made this move. That's some real money that's sitting in your account. So it's worked fabulously well. So, great decisions by the staff on how to fund it. So, yeah.
What other questions do you have for John and his team? Alright, I think that's it then.
All right.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Alright, and that brings us to item 5B, which would be the review staff compensation 24-25.
As this was presented, last week to the board, I think I have to say, time and effort, unless you guys have questions, the administration is recommending going with a 4% increase, for staff and support staff basically across the board. This aligns with what CPI is, currently CPI is about I think 4.12 or 4.16%. So, that is the dollar amount that we have built into the models that we have shown tonight, that 4% increase. That's the recommendation that we're giving moving forward.
Questions? Alright, well, seeing none then, I would say we'll take about a 5-minute recess before we continue the meeting, so it is, it is 56, we'll go at 7:05, take 9 minutes.